Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We have another 4 wonderful stories. And the first is from Nik Romero. Nik recently came out of the Navy, where he spent 7 years, right? And he is at John Jay, where he is studying to be an investigator. And he has an exciting young story to tell us.
Thank you, Marcia. How's everybody doing? Hi. You guys want to hear a fucking weird one? Rhetorical question, sir, but thank you. So, this is the story of how I became a man, and it's not gross, it's kind of gross, it's a little gross, but, bear with me. So, I was a very weird, strange, awkward kid. I know you look upon me now and I'm very tall and very charming, but up until about age 15, I was about yay tall and very chubby, and my greatest accomplishment was that I'd gotten my sorcerer in Dungeons & Dragons up to level 7. So, it's a big deal. That's 3rd level spells. Anyway, so I didn't get a lot of attention from women, didn't have a lot of confidence, but there was one girl. This girl's name was Nikki. And I wasn't particularly popular in high school, and neither was she. She was in this similar kind of outside strata of the pecking order. But, we knew each other, and we were friendly with each other. We'd say hi in the hallway. We had a couple classes with her, and she was always very nice to me. The thing about Nikki is that she was insane. And I don't mean that in the way that guys usually talk about their ex-girlfriends, where it's like, oh, she texts me 7 times an hour or whatever. No, I mean, like, incompetent to stand trial, where, like, if she committed a murder, she could reasonably get her attorney to blame it on an imaginary friend. So, very nice girl, very nice. The other important detail is that she had this kind of weird habit of just disappearing, where I'd see her in the hallway or I'd see her in one of my classes one day, the next day she'd be gone. No one knew where she was. Sometimes it would be weeks, sometimes it would be months. She'd show back up like nothing ever happened. So we went to high school together. We graduated. I decided to join the Navy at this time, but I had to wait a year before I left for boot camp. So I did a year of college in the meantime. I went to Westchester Community College, and who should also be going there but my old friend Nikki. So we started talking again. We got to be closer friends, and then one night she sends me a text, and she goes, hey, you want to have sex in the back of my car? And I'm going to dramatize a little bit here, but I believe my response to that was, gee golly, sure would I. So that happened. Just a warning, a lot of this story takes place in the back of that car. So we started this kind of low-stakes relationship, which was good for me because I'm not particularly emotionally available broadly. So it was very casual and it was very easy, and it required pretty much nothing from me, and it was nice. And after a couple months of that happening, once again, Nikki just disappeared, and I was fine with it. She had her own thing going on. A couple weeks, maybe a couple months go by. I get that familiar text. We're in the back of her car. And I can't help but notice she's wearing a ring on this finger. And I says to her, I say, Nikki, what's with the ring? Did you get engaged when you were in rehab? And she goes, you got this for me. She goes, well, I bought it, but I pretended it was from you, and we're engaged now. So if I'd been a more mature man at the time, I would have said, Nikki, that's very sweet, and I understand what you're trying to tell me. I don't feel the same way, and I think we should see other people. But I was 19 years old and having sex for the first time in my life, so I was like, okay. And that's the story of how I got engaged, everybody. It goes on. So the time would go by, and she would do her little disappearing act. I wouldn't see her for a couple weeks at a time, and she'd show back up. And we didn't really talk about it except for one night. And this was mere weeks before I left for boot camp. And I say to Nikki, listen, I'm going to be in the Navy for 6 years minimum. How exactly do you expect this whole marriage thing to work out? And that's when she said, for the next 7 years, you can do whatever you want to whoever you want. But when those 7 years are up, your ass is mine. Now I'm here to tell you, there's no worse way to spend your 19th birthday than planning your marriage to a woman that believes she owns your soul. So the details of this story kind of space out. You know, I would go back home on leave and I would hear rumors about what she was up to. I'd heard she'd been arrested. I heard she moved down to Florida. I heard she married a different guy. But the thing was, I never spoke to her again face to face after this. So I never called off the engagement. Far as I know, I could get married and she could be in the audience. But we're in a church. And one more fun little detail. I do remember when I was in boot camp, and the trauma of boot camp hadn't completely erased this from my mind. And I remember one of my buddies was like, "You got anybody waiting at home for you, Romero?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." So that's pretty much the story. And I've struggled coming up with an ending for it, but I think I finally kind of figured it out. Nikki, if you're watching, and I assume you are, I want to break up. Thank you.
We've had 3 rehearsals, and that was a surprise to all of us. Very different point of view right now. I'd like to welcome Chun Kim Levin to the stage. Chun spent a career in the medical field and then decided that that wasn't for her and has become a much beloved yoga teacher and holistic healer. And Chun, what's your story?
How do you top that? But I don't want to break up, you know. I want to keep my man. Yes, I do remember. How could I forget? Riding a bicycle, a young man came to tune my piano. Our eyes met. Before I could even say hello, my heart jumped and fluttered as though it remembered him. Ooh, thank God that just lasted a few seconds. But I felt like I got washed over by a wave. What was that all about? My brain couldn't make sense out of that. I dropped and that was that. Fast forward 2 years. Now it's spring of '82. I just have a few more semesters to go before I get my master's degree. Since arriving in the US from Korea in 1970, I've done really well. Working full-time all the time, going to school part-time, playing piano, playing tennis, ice skating in Central Park. My life was just beautiful, except one thing. So I started thinking about, okay, I get my master's degree. What is my next chapter? Well, next chapter, I'm already in my early 30s, so you know what's coming, right? I need to find my soulmate to share this beautiful life with and then build a future together. But where, who, how did it begin? I haven't dated anybody yet. I was too busy. By then, my friends gave up trying to match me with anybody. Going to the singles bars was out of question. It just wasn't my thing. I had no appeal. So then, I'm just not going to sit around and wait for Mr. Right to drop by. I had to do something. But I was completely at a loss. Oh, I can't not think about, though. Then my inner voice said, what about that young man who came to tune your piano? Remember how your heart was jumping? Yes, I remember. What about him? I haven't thought about him since. Who knows? So, what if he could still have the reaction for you? What if? What if? Only one thing to do. Luckily, I still had his business card. I called him up, made an appointment for piano tuning again. This time, I had other agendas. One, I wanted to find out whether my heart would react the same way. Two, if he was available. Three, whether he was worth pursuing. Well, he arrived on time, that's a good thing. The second I opened the door, my heart, boom, 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 much louder than the first. I feel like I could faint. Maybe it's just the build-up to that point, I'm not sure. He went to work on my piano. I went to kitchen, sat, took a few deep breaths to get my nerves calm. I had some time while he was tuning. It's obvious he does have something special over my heart. I don't know what. So what to do? After the tuning was done, I invited him for a cup of tea. He stayed. We talked, mostly about music. I was surprised. We had something in common. Me, who grew up in a small farming village in South Korea after the devastating Korean War. He, a native New Yorker. We both loved classical music and jazz. In fact, we liked same Mozartian pianist named Alicia Della Rocha. I thought that was like so amazing that we could have such common or specific things. But all the time though now, and I was so impressed that he knew so much more about the music than I did. Now I had to find out whether he was available, but how do you do that? We are strangers still, I can't ask him. I'm practically sniffing to see if I can detect a woman's perfume in his clothing. What I really wanted to know was whether he slept with a woman last night. My heart said, no, not last night. Maybe night before, but not last night. I was so short. He left. Then he left, and I can't stop thinking about this man. Nothing in particular, but thought of him was in my mind night and day. I'm walking around in my apartment singing, I can't shake that man out of my head. I can't shake that man out of my head. I had to do something. But what? What do you do? I hadn't a clue. Then my inner voice. You know, he's not the kind of guy who would ask his customer for a date. So I have to ask for a date? Oh, just the thought of it. But then I just had a feeling if I didn't pursue it, I would regret it. I don't know why I got that feeling. I just had it. So I had to do something. Thinking, and then, I remember he did say he's been playing flute seriously for many years. I quickly go through my Lincoln Center season tickets to see if there's anything. Am I in luck or what? Mr. John Pierre Rampal, the most famous flutist, coming to play Lincoln Center that summer. I quickly got another ticket. I took some time, a few days, make believe I was calm. With excitement in my heart, big fear of dejection in my head, I called him and asked if he would join me to go to concert with me. There was a pause. Seemed like an eternity. Finally, he said, that sounds good. I'd like to join you. Whew, what a relief. But I felt like a winner already. I suggested we go to a Korean restaurant before the restaurant because I wanted to find out whether he knew anything about Korean culture. At the time, it was on all the 80s, there was only one Korean restaurant in Manhattan, and I had never seen any Western people. He said he never ate Korean food, but he would like to try. I said, he's adventurous. He got 1 point for that. He loved Korean food, hot, spicy, pungent, sour kimchi and all. I was so happy, couldn't have been happier. During intermission of the concert, we got up to stretch our legs. He was sitting on my left, the couple sitting on my right, they were about to get up. So I'm waiting, I hear his voice, would you excuse us? Something about his voice, the tone of voice, and the word us. My heart felt like it was melting like ice cream on a hot summer day. My heart whispers, yes, I want to be us with you. The second half of the concert, I do not remember. I must have been in dreamland. When the concert was over, we sat on a bench under the large tree in the Damrush Park. But I said, before I go any further, I better find out. I asked Stu, are you married? He said, no. Do you have a girlfriend? Hesitated, he said, no. All right then, to myself, all right then, it's done there, you're mine. I made up my mind then, he didn't know it. What else could it be? I mean, I couldn't think of anything else. That was the most enchanting midsummer evening. I could have stayed in his arms forever. We started seeing each other. He spent a little time, but I was wondering, I asked him a date. Is he coming along because he's got nothing to lose, or is he investing anything? I asked two little small requests. I thought that'll give me some clue. Stu, if you're going to spend some time in my apartment, you can't wear shoes. You got to take shoes off. That's how I grew up, and I like to keep my apartment clean. He said, no problem. Just take the shoelaces off, no problem. Okay, that's pretty good. Another one. You have to sit down in the toilet to pee. He said, what, you want me to sit down to pee like a girl? I said, yes, because in the middle of the night, I get up, I don't know toilet seat is up, and my body's almost in the toilet water. It's cold, wet, I don't like it. I don't know whether he sat down to pee or stand up, but toilet seat was never up. That's 2 days later, you know what? He's willing to change his lifetime of habit to make me happy. I like that. We kept seeing each other and spending more time. I'm beginning to feel some heaviness in my heart. I have to reveal a secret to him, a secret that no one knew except my close family members. See, when I turned 14, for some reason my hair started getting white, few streaks first, and rapidly more. You are a teenager, the hair is everything. My friends are saying, what's the matter with you? You have white hair. And I sit down at school, they pull my hair in the back. I just hated it. I felt like something was wrong with me. So at 15, I decide I'm going to color my hair. I color my hair dark and shiny, just like every other girl's. Nobody knew it. By the time I was dating Stu, my hair is half gray. And I hate even more to see the white roots appearing. I color my hair, pretend it's not there. But then I said, we're spending really intimate time together. He's going to see this, and he's going to freak out. I said, I better tell him. So one day, Stu, I have something to tell you about myself. He said, uh-oh, you're going to tell me you're not Jewish. I laughed. My anxiety, tightness in my throat and heart began to lose its grip. I felt safe. I felt like myself. We've been together ever since, almost 40 years. But I'm not done with him yet. The other day, my husband asked, You still want to get more out of me, don't you? I said, yes, my love. In fact, I'm going to get every drop out of you so that when God comes to take you back, he's going to say, there's nothing left of him. You can keep him. And I want to keep him for 40 more years. Thank you.
So, Nik, I hope you find a love like that.
We're singing together.
Our next storyteller is Dave Hull, who is a horticulturist. He's a poet, a musician, and one of the most valued volunteers at Tompkins Corner Cultural Center. Dave, what's your story?
It's ironic, people who know me well, instead of saying hello when I see them, I'll say, so what's your story? My son asked, did you title this event, Dad? I said, no, it was Marcia. And I'd just like to acknowledge what a great job Marcia has done as our coach. I'm very happy to not have to have followed her because I was teary-eyed after hearing her. It was wonderful. So anyway, here's my story. I grew up in a funeral home. By the way, I have a cheat sheet. Pretend that it's not in my hand. We lived upstairs. I had... oldest brother was Ed, 10 years older than I am. My sister Sandy Lee was close in age to Ed. I'm 10 years younger than Ed, and the youngest, Frank, is 16 months younger than I am. So there was a door just off the dining room. It was made of wood and glass panels. And on the other side of the door was a series of steps, a landing, and then another series of steps. And that was the passageway from our home to the funeral home. So, my earliest recollections of noticing that I live in a different environment than other kids my age, I remember asking Mom, on a regular basis, so where's Dad? Oh, he's downstairs. What's he doing? Oh, he's working. What kind of work is he doing? Well, right now he's embalming. What's that? She said, well, why don't you go downstairs and see? So, my dad occasionally had a little bit of a temper. I didn't want to anger him, and I didn't want to disrupt anything because I knew that he met with families and had business meetings downstairs. But I was curious, so I went downstairs and I walked into his office, and then I could hear some movement in the next room, the embalming room. So I walk in, and there's a body, a man, very pale, on the table, and my dad sees me, and I said, Dad, what happened to this guy? Did a cowboy shoot him? And my dad got this big grin on his face, and he said, yes, Dave, that's exactly what happened. How did you know that? So, because we were close in age, sometimes when we were young, Dad would give us a ride to school in his shiny black company limousine. And kids would ask me, are you rich? And I'd say, I don't know. So, I go home and say to my folks, are we rich? Because the kids want to know, are we rich? Because you take us to school in this car. And so my mom would say, well, your dad makes a very good living, But he needs that car. It's a necessary tool for his business. And we do okay, but we're certainly not rich. I'm like, okay, so if the kids ask me again, I'll know what to say. Frank and I were normal little boys. We made a lot of noise sometimes. If you run on the floor, people are going to hear it below. So, if there was nothing happening downstairs, we would run and jump and yell and scream and sometimes cry and wrestle on the floor and say, he did it, no, he did it, normal stuff that siblings do. And so Mom developed this one game. If our energy level was too high and she was concerned that we might make too much noise, if there was some business happening downstairs, we'd hop in the car and she'd drive, and we'd take turns. Mostly Frank and I would decide, okay, turn right, and then be his turn. He'd say, okay, go left, and mostly we'd decide, and occasionally she would take a turn because I found out later that she didn't have the best sense of direction, and she wanted to ensure that we'd get back home, and, it might be dinner time, she'd have to make dinner, or maybe it was bedtime, we had to go to bed, whatever. We had a dog, a beagle. The beagle's name was John Doodle. And John Doodle was so fat, its belly would drag on the floor. And he was king of the neighborhood moochers. And he would snore. And my dad had some sinus problems, and he snored. If you woke up in the middle of the night and went down the hall to go to the bathroom, it was raucous noise that filled the house, and it wasn't pleasant to listen to, but you kind of got accustomed to it. That was the norm in our house. So one day, Doodle wandered downstairs, and there was a casket. There was a body in the casket. It was occupied, and the casket rested on a cart. And the cart had a red velour drape that concealed the cart. So he's sleeping under there, and he's snoring as usual. And a florist delivery man shows up full of baskets of flowers. He sees the body. He hears the snoring. He drops the flowers, takes off like a bolt of lightning. We never saw him again. This was like our family recurring story to see if people who showed up to visit, if they were run away like he did. I liked to play baseball, so the only way to make that happen was for me to call up my friends and say, hey, let's go to Bungay School, we'll have a baseball game. And so I had to cajole people to come. If one guy would say, if he comes, I'm not coming, I don't like him. I'll come if so-and-so comes. So anyway, we'd get enough people together to have a game. What would happen invariably was that the score after, like 3 hours would be like 24-3. And by this time, this guy in right field is laying on the ground with his glove next to him, and it'd be really hot, and he'd start this chant, Hull's pool is cool. Hull's, and everybody joined in. It's like a mob now. And so I quickly learned that I had to ask Mom ahead of time, is there going to be a wake, or is Dad meeting with the family? Because, I couldn't have a bunch of raucous kids there if that was happening. So if there was nothing going on, I'd say, okay, bring the gang, and we'd go swimming. And my grandfather, when I was about 10, Grandpa Hull died. And I must have been noticeably disturbed by it. My dad picked up on that and said, Dave, if you don't want to go to the service, you don't have to go. And I said, what? I don't want to go. And I appreciated that he gave me that option. Around the same time, my other grandfather, Grandpa Grossbeck, was living in a convalescent home. And my dad frequented places like that to make removals. So one day, my dad drives up where my grandfather is. My grandfather sees him coming, wheeling a stretcher up the sidewalk. He holds the door open for my dad, and then he yells for everyone to hear, "Ralph is here! Somebody croaked!" A real tactful guy, my grandpa. When Frank and I were teenagers, we would do chores for my dad and get paid, wash the cars and vacuum, clean the bathrooms, maintain the outside. And Dad, throughout our lives as kids, he would always say, if any of you kids want to go into the business, I'll do whatever I can to make that happen for you. And in high school, there was this scrawny little guy. He was like this tall, Wayne Saxton. And he gave me a nickname, Corpse. And I didn't like it. I was not at all fond of it. And he picked up on that, so he called me that incessantly. Even after one day, I picked him up and threw him over a desk. He still continued to do that. After high school, he enlisted in the Navy, and I had heard later on that he was missing in action while at sea. And I can only assume he said the wrong thing to the wrong person one too many times. When I was a junior in high school in English class, everyone had to do an oral book report. So I decided to pick something light. I liked Alfred Hitchcock. He was a master of suspense. So he had a book of short stories. So as soon as I announced the title of the book, the whole entire class erupted into laughter, and it seemed to last forever. The title of the book, Get Me to the Wake on Time. My dad had this practice. If a family endured the terrible loss of a newborn or stillborn, he didn't charge the family. And he had been a president of the Connecticut Funeral Directors Association. My brother Frank followed in my father's footsteps. He too was voted in as president of the Funeral Directors Association. So Frank has helped families learn to cope and grieve with the loss of a loved one. I've taken a different path. I work as a professional horticulturist. I've learned every day to nurture plants and life and enhance the beauty that nature already provides. And that's my story.
So it's amazing, but we only have one more story to go. Norma Ferrara, who a long time ago came from Guatemala, but she carries it with her. And Norma is, I don't know, come here, girl.
You're going home soon.
Norma is one of the people in the world who constantly reaches out to help other people. And that's how I think of you most. And a leader in her community and somebody who brings people together.
Not on the stage, so you have to excuse me and be patient. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you. I can speak to you face to face, but being at the stage my heart is going. It's staying right now, right here. But I would like to know who else in this room was born or raised outside of the United States. Yay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you probably will relate a little bit to my story. Good evening. My name is Norma, and I was born and raised in Guatemala. And I was raised in this large home. Actually, I am one of 12. I am number 9. And I do remember everyone's name, and I do remember everyone's birthday, because my mom's favorite thing to do was to give us a grilled or roasted grilled chicken that it was done into a charcoal. And that charcoal was, made outside in a fire pit, and where we all collected wood, and then it was done like that. So I never, that was a very special thing to me. And so we all looking forward to celebrate our birthday. That's the way that we celebrate our birthday. We had our own chicken, and it was up to us to share it or not. It was ours, so it's very special. Anyhow, I'm number 8 in my family, and I'm the number 8. And then I grew up between 4 boys. 3 older boys and 1 youngest. So four of my siblings were already married. I was not even 10 when my youngest baby sister was born. So going to school, I witnessed how my teacher behaved, and I'm like, I really want to go be like my teacher. I want to go to school. I want to be someone. I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to have children. As a matter of fact, my house is not going to have a kitchen, because I was placed to help my mom to prepare meals every day. In the beginning, it was fun, but when I was assigned to prepare a meal, it was now a work, and I didn't like that. I am going to be like my teacher. I am going to not have children. I'm not getting married. And I'm going to be someone boss. Yes, that was my plan. Definitely. So here I am, preteen, and then my mom said to me, I need to go to the hospital today. You are in charge of preparing a meal. Okay. So you see that black chicken? You have to prepare it. What do you mean? She already had trained me how to clean the chicken, how to chop the chicken, and how to make a soup. So here I am with a live chicken. Mom, I can't murder the chicken. Don't leave me behind. She said, it's basically my obligation, is my expectation as a girl. So, Mom, you can't do that. Yes, you can. So she took off. And here I am with a live chicken. So how do I do that? No, I can't do that. I can't murder it. I can't kill that poor chicken. No, I can't do that. So I reached out to my best friend, and I said, Xiomara, I need your help. I need to slaughter the chicken, and you need to help me. And she said, well, I did it. You can do it. And then I said, no, please help me out. I can't do that. I can't hurt the chicken. She said, you can do it. I can help you to tie the chicken, and then you can do whatever you want, but here is a knife. And then I said, no, please do it on my behalf. She said, no, I did it. You can do it. No, please help me out. So she said, oh, there is another way to do it. What do you mean? Use a log. I will help you to tie the chicken, and you can hit it, and then that's how it's going to be done. So we tied up this poor chicken, and then I'm crying, Nombre Padre, Hijo, Espíritu Santo, Amen. And then tying it, and they got the log, and then I closed my eyes, and I went like that to that poor chicken, and then, wow, I killed it. Wow. And then she said, okay, it's done. See, you did it. So here I am, I grabbed it. So now what? So I grabbed that chicken with this stick, like that. Now it's time to place her to the boiling water, that it was ready, and then I moved the chicken, and then boom, then dead. She didn't move, so it was ready. So here I am, grabbed that chicken, okay, and then went to the pot, and as soon as that chicken felt the steam, it went like, run away, flew away, and then I run away screaming. I can't do it. And then, now what? So I ran to my nearest neighbor, which was half a mile away, and I said, Doña Carmela, please help me out. I need to prepare this soup, and then I can kill the chicken. I can slaughter. And then she said, okay, so you know your mom is expecting you to do that, right? And I said, I can't do that. I can't. What can I do? Can you help me? So she said, okay, I'll do it this time. So she did it, and I prepared the chicken soup. So this was a secret that I kept to myself, and I am telling this story in honor to my latest mom, who passed away a few years ago, and never told that story, never conveyed the secret that I didn't slaughter the chicken, and I know that it was expected, and as a female, and but I think that we all have passions and compassion, and I know that I was expected to go through that process as a female in my family, but I'm still female, and I didn't kill the chicken. Thank you.
No, Norma tells me that she does eat chicken. Well, before we finish for tonight, I'm just curious, how many of you feel like you have a story to tell? Yes. And every one of us does, because it's who we are. And you know, I hope that we'll have another storytelling event here sometime in the future. And for those of you who are new to Tompkins, I've got to tell you, it's a wonderful community here, and it's a wonderful place for entertainment. There is everything from, you know, I've heard all kinds of world music, lots of Irish music, lots of folk music. There's art, there's poetry. There's a whole world of rich culture in this community, and I hope you will sign up for our mailing list and come back again. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night.